Thank you all so much for joining us today. We're really excited to hear about the great work happening at UC Santa Barbara. As folks are joining, please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat box so we can get an idea of where folks are coming from today. We have Dr. Jacqueline Kurta and Sven Rundman presenting the power of prevention and partnerships at UC Santa Barbara. Jacqueline Kurta, PsyD, the director of the UCSB Alcohol and Drug Program, is a licensed marriage and family therapist and received her Doctor of Psychology degree in marriage and family therapy from the Ryokan College in Los Angeles. She earned her master's degree in clinical psychology from Antioch University, Santa Barbara, and received a BA in English from Tufts University in Boston. Originally from New York City, Jackie and her family relocated to Los Angeles in 1987, and they have made Santa Barbara their home since 2000. In addition to her work at UCSB, Jackie currently serves as clinical supervisor for Casa Serena, a women's residential recovery program in Santa Barbara. She has a teaching position with the UCSB Counseling and School Psychology, serves as adjunct faculty for Jackie serves as president of the board of directors for New Beginnings Counseling Center, a community agency in Santa Barbara serving the most vulnerable populations. She served on the board of the Santa Barbara chapter of the California Association of Marriage and Family Therapists in a variety of capacities and volunteers with a number of local disaster relief agencies. She's joined today by Sven Rundman IV, who is the Assistant Director of Prevention at UC Santa Barbara. He earned his Bachelor of Science from Purdue University and his Master of Social Work from University of Tennessee. Sven is dedicated to preventing violence and fostering healthier, safer communities. With nearly a decade of experience in prevention, he is deeply passionate about examining masculinities and its intersections with violence, believing that real change happens when entire communities work together. Driven by the power of collective action, Sven's ultimate goal is to help create a world free from violence. For self-care, Sven loves spending time with his family at local beaches and parks, playing with his two cats, exploring the best hiking trails in Santa Barbara, and jamming out to his favorite music. He also never misses the latest Gordon Ramsay show. Thank you, and with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Jenna, and thank you all for attending and joining us. We're looking forward to a fun conversation. I'm going to share my screen, and I will start off, and then Sven will be joining as well. So I certainly invite any questions. I recognize I'm not going to be able to multitask well enough to see them. So Jenna or Sven, if you see questions that people want answers to in the moment, please let me know, and
I got you.
And we'll cover them. Wonderful. So thanks again for having us. Sven and I have enjoyed many years of working together on our UC Santa Barbara campus. And this is a great opportunity for us to share with you what we do individually and also how we collaborate with each other. So I'll just jump right in here and hope that my technology skills are sufficient here. Okay. So the UCSB Alcohol and Drug Program, I'm going to use this opportunity to kind of go to our website, which I think is the best way to kind of provide an overview. Here at the UC Santa Barbara campus, I think our alcohol and drug program has a very unique, is a very unique program as far as I understand other collegiate programs that attend to substance use and other addictive behaviors. We are not a part of the Counseling and Psychological Services program. We are located at Student Health, and CAPS is a separate program. And we are partnered with other behavioral health teams here in Student Health. So we collaborate with a social work team as well as a team of psychiatrists. And our work is supported by 3 other licensed therapists. In addition to myself, we've developed a specialty. We are general mental health therapists, clinicians, but our specialty over the years, and we've been working together for at least 10 or 11 years, our area of specialty has become substance use and other addictive behaviors, because we've needed to address the different trends and things that students are coming to us for support. So one of the main things, and I'll take a kind of a quick dive into the website, but this message promoting safe, intentional choices and a balanced lifestyle is really kind of our mantra. We are a very harm reduction oriented program. We do have services for students in recovery or those seeking support uh, for, um, for recovery or for abstinence and a sober lifestyle. But overall, we are a harm reduction approach, really trying to meet students where they are. All of our services are free and they are confidential because we are within the student health system. So all of our work with students is kept confidential within their medical records. About 7 or 8 years ago, one of our clinicians who runs our Gauchos for Recovery program identified the need to really pay attention to overdose prevention. And she was able to partner with the state of California's naloxone distribution project to get free Narcan supplies. So Narcan, as you all may know, is the nasal version, the nasal spray version of naloxone. So we started promoting overdose prevention and distributing Narcan years ago, and it's been a very significant part of the prevention work that we've done on our campus and in our local community of Isla Vista, which is a very 1 square mile, very densely packed with college students and some other residential families. A very vibrant, energetic. I love Isla Vista. I think Sven does too. There are a lot of people for whom Isla Vista holds some mystery, but it's a wonderfully energetic community. And so our work extends out into the residential community that really adjoins our campus. So overdose prevention here, very straight messaging. If you're concerned about someone, then please, utilize the overdose prevention efforts that we have. We also offer, the other services here are counseling, education, prevention. This is a little handout about our services. We offer nicotine cessation services for students. So, a lot of opportunities for students to get support. I'll be going into these resources a little bit later in terms of our support for students regarding all sorts of substance use and other other behaviors. Digital wellness is one that we've this device and screen management tab is one that we've been expanding over the last couple of years as we find more and more students coming in seeking support around that behavior. It's not a substance to some extent, but it certainly has that kind of impact on students in terms of their well-being and some consequences for that use. We have peer educator groups that I'll be talking about. We have our Gauchos for Recovery and our Life of the Party peers, both of whom do tremendous work on our campus in terms of connecting with our students and really being the voice that offers our services to students. Our Gauchos for Recovery program, again, I'll provide a little bit more information about them. This is now, I think it's our 13th year of Gauchos for Recovery. We were the first one within the UC system, and also one of the first collegiate recovery programs in the country. There are a couple of others in Texas and I think in the Midwest that preceded us, but the model that we're following is one we're really very proud of, and it's a very robust program that serves the students. So I think I'll go back to my slide deck here. Our Life of the Party peers, as I mentioned, I've put up this little logo here. We've had Life of the Party as our logo for years, but periodically I intentionally slip into Life is the Party, because ultimately that's what our messaging and our work is all about. It's about making sure that students are safe, that they're well informed, that they know what the resources are, they know how to take care of themselves and take care of their friends. We've been trying for years to kind of reduce the party image that UCSB has by redefining what a party is and what does that mean. And I'll talk a little bit more about some of those efforts as we go through this. But Life of the Party really was started, as I've indicated here, back in 2009 as a student focus group. One of our student assistants felt like the best way for us to understand what the students want in terms of messaging is to bring them together as a focus group. So they developed the Life of the Party concept. They developed some of the initial safety campaigns, and they continue to kind of be our connection to the student community, and make sure that we meet the needs that the students have in mind. Some of the party safety tips that Life of the Party offers is on their website. I'll jump to that in a minute, but I will talk about the Responsible Action Protocol, which is the campus version of the Good Samaritan Law. And it was, this campus Responsible Action Protocol was put into the Student Code of Conduct, I'm gonna say probably, 8 or so, or maybe even 10 years ago. And the effort came about as a result of some of the fraternities and sororities coming to the Division of Student Affairs Leadership and wanting some collaboration that helped them trust that if they were to make a call for safety during one of their events or parties, that that call would be understood as one that in which they're trying to support students' well-being and safety. Because typically calls for safety then involve the police and then involve administration and follow-up and sanctions. And so this very sort of energetic group of fraternity sorority leaders wanted to collaborate with the campus to develop something that helped them know that making a call on behalf of somebody's safety was not going to result in punishment or sanction or administrative issues. So the Responsible Action Protocol is written to support that, with the understanding that if students are involved in an event in which somebody or people are at risk in some way, or there's some unsafe behaviors, that there may be an educational referral, and that would be to our program. We already have a couple of those collaborations in place, like with housing. If students violate campus policy with regard to alcohol and drugs, they are referred to us for education. So it's not a clinical referral, it's not a punishment, but it is a referral that they need to comply with in order for the campus to feel like they're getting the information that they need to be safe. So the Responsible Action Protocol incorporates that. They might be referred to us for an educational group or a safety seminar of some sort. But students now do believe and trust that the call for safety is encouraged, and they can feel safe in doing that. Some of the other party safety tips that our Life of the Party team offers talks about the Good Samaritan policy, talks about our Just Call campaign, which I will get into a little bit as well. These safety tips really are intended to help people not only who might be offering a party, but also people who are attending the parties, right? How can they take care of themselves using the buddy system? Very, very intentional efforts around drink tampering, drink safety, making sure that they understand what their limits are, being aware of their surroundings. So any way that we can kind of encourage them to, take care of themselves if they're going to be in the community attending a party. And then we also offer safety tips here. We have a bunch of information about different drugs, a lot of education around blackouts. Many of our students are of the impression that blackouts happen to everybody when they drink. And of course, our education is to help them understand that that's not the case. If people choose to drink, being safe and taking precautions is certainly what's encouraged. If they're going to choose big campaigns about not mixing substances, choosing one, they're going to choose, knowing how to identify alcohol poisoning or drug overdose, what kind of symptoms to look for, and then to take the next step of calling 911, how to avoid hangovers. We did have a party registration system. I think this year it's not in effect, but we tried to work together with our law enforcement to encourage students to register their parties so that if there were if they needed help, if a party got out of hand or it was larger or people were not acting safely, that they could make that call. They still can, and I think they still get good collaboration, but there isn't that party registration system at this point. So these are just, again, ways that Life of the Party kind of steps in to provide that safety. So this Just Call 911 campaign we started some years ago, again, just when Life of the Party began. And it's been a very effective program in trying to encourage students to know that the safest step in case they are concerned about themselves or anyone else is to call 911. We, over the years, have acknowledged that making a call to law enforcement for a lot of our students is very, does not feel safe and can in fact make them hesitate about making that call. So a lot of messaging, a lot of help to students about if they're concerned about it, how to enlist support from other people to perhaps step in or make the call and then step away and just let safety come in and take care of the needs of the student or students who might need it. We have great collaboration with our UC Police Department. When a call for 911 is made and they show up, they are there to help a student or students who are at risk. They're not there to bust the party. They're not there to arrest people. We're always telling students if there's a mountain of cocaine on the dining room table, that may draw their attention a little bit, but so you can help yourself if you're at a party and you need to call 911. You know, clean up what you're doing, move away. Don't necessarily draw the law enforcement's attention to that. Make sure that they have access to getting people the help and the safety that they need. And that message we continue to reinforce for our students. We partner, as I've indicated here, with housing. We partner a lot with our orientation programs and parents. We're always informing parents. We participate actively, as does Sven, in our orientation programs for parents and students. There's our collaboration with the CARE program, which Sven will also talk more about. Fraternities and sororities, we partner with them to provide them with this little thing up in the corner here is actually a sample of a key tag that we hand out to students. The flip side of it has all of these warning signs on it. So it's something easy for students to carry around. We also have it in the form of a wallet card that students can carry on their phone wallet. And there are QR codes all over campus with all of this information. We partner with our health and wellness program. They handle all aspects of student well-being, from sleep to meditation to body image counseling and support. Our student conduct office refers students to us as part of their process for, again, educating students, making sure they have the connections to support services on campus. Our UC Police Department and our County Sheriff's Department. We have two police, like probably all of your campuses do. You have your local police and you have your campus police, and they collaborate and interact quite a lot with each other. One of the things we've been doing this year is kind of reimagining the Red Cup. So this image here is of an actual Red Cup that I actually have one right here. Here's a Red Cup. So the Red Cup that we created has, and I'm sure all of you know, but we continue to find students who don't know that Red Cups actually have the little ridges on them that indicate drink amounts. So we've created our own Red Cup, which has the shot amount, the wine amount, and the beer amount. And it's always interesting for students to see that this is actually 12 ounces of beer and not this is 12 ounces of beer. So so we distribute these Red Cups to any, we give them around at tabling, and it's really kind of mind blowing for students when they actually see what is a shot versus what they pour, or what is a glass of wine versus drinking out of a box of wine. All of that education comes into what we do. So this year, what we decided to launch is a mocktails initiative, where we have our Life of the Party peers serving mocktails at various campus events, but we also created a mocktail kit so that people who are interested in having a party, but making sure that it's available and of interest to anybody who wants to come, regardless of whether they choose to drink. So it's been really fun, kind of sending the message out to the campus. And for us, it's very much a kind of culture change message. It's a way of providing what I refer to as an equitable social experience. So you can provide a social opportunity for people, and anybody who comes should feel welcome, regardless, again, of whether they choose to drink or not. And we do find, and you're probably finding this on your campuses as well, more and more incoming students report, at least according to the NCHA data, if that's a tool that you all use, more students self-report reduction in drinking. And we have seen more students wanting options, and the perception is that everybody drinks, but the reality is that they in fact don't. And that's something that we're trying to reinforce to our community, so that people feel comfortable wherever they're going to be, spending their socializing time. Let's see. Some other initiatives that that our Left the Party team has brought in. So this over here is just kind of an example of a lot of the social media posts. We try to go beyond just, alcohol and substances, but also trying to integrate in just healthy choices, ways to be academically successful, as well as, healthy and safe. We just last week had a cannabis town hall. We invited a researcher from Washington State University to come and give a very blunt talk about cannabis, right? What's the research saying? So we want to offer students an opportunity to hear the facts, and not to just feel like we're telling them not to do this or why not to do this. It's not negative messaging. We want them to have the information that they can then make the best choices from. This actually, tomorrow we're doing another sort of example of events that our Life of the Party team does. We do a dodgeball tournament every year in memory of a student who passed away now 14 years ago from an accidental drug overdose. And every year we partner with our recreation center to put on a dodgeball tournament, because the student, Alec, was the first referee for their very first dodgeball tournament that took place the night that he passed away. He left the event. He took a drug called Opana, which was not something known to him at the time as a very powerful synthetic opioid, and he died in his sleep. So his parents became very interested in prevention and messaging, so they helped support this annual dodgeball tournament. We bring together about 300 students to participate in the tournament, and we provide a lot of educational messaging throughout the tournament about accidental overdose and ways to stay safe. A lot of tabling goes on from our programs, as well as some other campus programs. And then this initiative is called The Weekend, and our Life of the Party peers publish a weekend guide every Thursday for events that are taking place on campus and off campus, that we hope answers the question, what else is there to do on the weekend besides go out on our local in our local Isla Vista neighborhood and drink. We actively curate this list of other activities that students can participate in, so that they don't feel like there's no other options for them but to be involved in party scenes that may not be their thing. And then finally, I'll end up with the Gauchos for Recovery program. Again, our collegiate recovery program. Here's an example of them out in front of one of our lecture halls out in Isla Vista. They're giving out the Narcan kits and fentanyl test strips we've started to distribute alongside the Narcan. Again, we're able to get these through our free from the state. And so we just keep going back for more and more and more, and hope they never stop giving them to us. And they are offered to anybody, no questions asked, right? They step up to the table, whether they're a student, a staff person, a community person, a faculty member. We give them no questions asked. We want everybody to have one of these. And if they're out for a weekend, we want them to know somebody in their group has access to the Narcan. And our GFR program is really there to support students at any stage of what they might consider recovery. And the more that we learn and work with our students, the more we understand recovery looks different for everybody. So it may mean that somebody is in recovery from one substance, but safely using another. It may mean that they're choosing to be in recovery perhaps while here in the UCSB campus, but they may make a different choice in their life as they go forward. So we meet them where they are and support them. We run groups every night of the week that are led by students, both on Zoom and in person. We have a grad non-trad group. We have a rainbow recovery group. We have a harm reduction group, a sex and love addicts anonymous group, Al-Anon group. So, you know, we hope to engage students in whatever way they could use the support. And this is a phrase that I heard at a conference some years ago that I really tend to try to pay forward, is a campus safe for students in recovery is a campus safe for everyone. And we try to take that out into our campus and also help our staff and faculty understand how they can be allies to our students in recovery. We do a whole presentation on recovery allyship as well. So I think that's it for me. I think the next slide up is Sven. So I will turn it over to you, Sven, and I'm sure there'll be time for questions at the end, right?
Okay. I'll move through quickly.
Okay.
Good afternoon, y'all. It's always nice to be with some fellow Southerners. I'm originally from Atlanta, Georgia, so I also want to apologize as a Tennessee graduate. Sorry the Vols are better than the Gamecocks, but different kind of conversation we can have. Thank you all so much for bringing us into your space to talk a little bit more about both of our programs and the Good Samaritan Law and bystander intervention. And that is, again, my focus area. I work for Campus Advocacy Resources and Education, which is the confidential resource center for survivors of interpersonal violence. And that is the overarching umbrella term that we use for sexual assault, relationship violence, stalking, and harassment. Go to the next slide for me, Jackie. Just real quick, a little bit about our office specifically. We basically offered 3 different things. Direct services in the form of confidential advocacy, prevention education, which I'll get to in a bit, then training. So how can we support staff and faculty on campus and even peer educators that are paid? So any paid employee of the university, how can we train them with and equip them with skills to how to handle disclosures of sexual violence in a trauma-informed, compassionate fashion while still upholding the responsibilities to report to Title IX if somebody does that kind of disclosure. But essentially, we work, next slide for me, Jackie. We will work with anyone who is connected to the UCSB community. So if you're a student, staff, faculty, graduate student, if you're a parent of a student, if you are a partner of a faculty member, staff member, or even a student, like our office does see them. And so we specifically have care advocates that are trained and they're confidential advocates. And we are able to get our confidentiality through state codes. So there's a state statute that says that if you have a sexual assault and domestic violence crisis counselor certification, so you've gone through a 40-hour or 65-hour certification process, then you can be confidential for anybody that discloses instances of violence to you. And so everybody in our office is technically able to be an advocate, but we've siloed out those arms of our office. And I have a feeling, I felt like I saw in the chat, I see the acronyms. I feel like Sape is probably my area. SAVIP is probably me too. Right, like doing prevention and advocacy, like under one role is almost impossible, and advocacy will always come first over prevention. And so we've really prioritized prevention and allowed it its own space to be able to flourish and create more programming. Next slide for me. This is sort of the advocacy wheel that we have, and these are the different topic areas that each of our advocates can support a survivor with if they want certain services. And so I don't really want to get too much in the nitty-gritty of that because that's not why we're necessarily here today. But essentially, we just try to create a network and a team of support around this individual, because as folks on this call probably already understand, when somebody's experienced something like interpersonal trauma, that impacts every aspect of their life, and it can impact every aspect of their life. And so, oh, thank you, Jenna. Sape is for the substance abuse prevention. Sape is, oh, nice. Okay, cool. Next slide for me. So again, I already reiterated this, but essentially we want to see anybody who's been impacted, and that also includes a supportive role. So we specifically tell our community that, you know, if a friend comes to you and they said that they experienced something last night and they don't know what to do, and you don't know what to do as a friend supporting your friend, you can come to our office to receive support, because that's secondary, tertiary trauma for our students, right? So we also want to provide them a network of support and also just ways in which that they can process that experience, because we are not expecting our students to be able to hold the trauma of their friends and to fix that, right? We have trained professionals on our campus that can help with that. And so we really encourage anybody, even somebody in a supportive role, to access services if they need be. Next slide, please. Make an appointment. Y'all don't need to know about that. Prevention education, why we're here. So prevention education is my arm of the office, and we really, at the end of the day, take a primary prevention approach to all things in our office. That's sort of our philosophy, and that's sometimes where Jackie and my, like the ADP office and our office, will have to have a lot of different conversations, because the different competing philosophies, right? Like when it comes to substance use, harm reduction is the way to go, right? We really want to be meeting people where they're at. But when it comes to working with violence prevention, we also, in a way, don't want to label as if it's somebody's fault that they're experiencing violence because they decided to consume too much, right? And so we do often have to tread that line very carefully between both of our offices. And I think we have a really great working relationship because of that. But I have a peer education team of 5 undergrad students, 1 graduate student. 3 of them are like kind of generalist peer educators. 1 of them is a healing peer. 1 of them is our men's engagement educator, which we received through some grant funding. And then our graduate student is our yoga instructor, actually, who runs our trauma-informed yoga program for survivors of violence. And really, I imagine as Jackie was chatting, I quickly looked on y'all's websites to see, what are y'all up to in South Carolina? And right, like peer education is one of the ways that is one of the most successful ways that we can be educating our community. And so, what is a healing peer? Thank you for the question, Jenna. Our healing peer provides just other forms of healing opportunities for survivors that isn't just talk therapy. And so a lot of feedback we've gotten over the years is that students are tired of talking about their experience. They're tired of processing it. They don't want to talk to another group or a therapist. They just want a space to be and to process subconsciously in some ways. And so our healing peer provides art healing programs. And so, excuse me. Funny enough, we live in Santa Barbara, which is very temperate climate, but this past quarter, she held a program that was all about making your own snow globes. And in the snow globes, it was, because we're right next to the ocean, it was all aquatic animals and like marine biology sort of stuff, which is sort of, we're a huge environmental marine biology kind of a school. And so we were really playing into, well, what is our environment like around us? And so that was a really successful event, but it's just using art forms for healing. And that's what our healing peer does. But yeah, we have a pretty strong and mighty team. I do want to say we do have another professional prevention coordinator that is vital when it comes to running the day-to-day of a prevention team, but they also oversee a lot of our bystander intervention programming. Next slide. But I always bring up thinking upstream because I don't know if anybody has heard this analogy before, but oftentimes when we talk about bystander intervention, we also talk about like getting to the root of the issue and or how can we think upstream about the issue. And so if y'all don't mind me listening to this analogy a little bit, but excuse me, I'm just overcoming a sickness. But so how do we prevent interpersonal violence and like sexual assault in the first place? Sometimes we have to use an analogy. And what I want y'all to do is really picture yourself standing next to the banks of a rushing river. You're relaxed, you're ready to have some peace and just quiet. Maybe you're going to journal, meditate, whatever. But then all of a sudden you look up and you notice that there's a person floating down the river that's caught up in the current. They're clearly in distress, bobbing up and down, gasping for air, right? So what do? Probably in this situation, you're going to look for some way to help that individual. And that might be to jump in. If you're a good swimmer, maybe you can find a branch that person could possibly grab. And maybe if you're lucky enough to finding some way to rescue them, ultimately, you just want to get that person to safety. But then, no sooner than you help this person out of the river, you look up and there's not one, but there's a group of 100 people that are drowning in the water, gasping for air. So what can we possibly do? It seems obviously unlikely that we can go in and save each individual person that's drowning. So we really are suggesting that we go upstream to figure out, well, where are all of these people even coming from to begin with? And at a certain point, you've got to wonder what's actually happening upstream. And so that's how we view this issue around, bystander intervention, prevention, education in general. If we think of the people in the river as people that have experienced violence, then we're talking numbers that are obviously greater than 100. And so we obviously have to talk about how can we stop it before it happens, which is a lot of bystander intervention. And so it really starts to require us to go to the cause, to go upstream, and to really take a look at how our environments exist and widely impact a lot of different people. Next slide for me, Jackie. And I often go back to the public health approach for prevention education. And we have tertiary at the top, secondary, but primary is the foundation of the pyramid. I always ask people, if I were to build a red solo cup pyramid that looked just like this, and I handed you a ball, and I asked you, I want you to knock down the pyramid, where would you throw it? You would throw it at the foundation and the base of the pyramid, which means that we have to go to the root. We have to go to primary prevention. We can't go to tertiary because all of that impact is still happening. And so we really try to make sure all of our programming within care, at least, is primary prevention, and we're going to the root. And again, next slide for me. Right, by going upstream and getting to the root of it, it really starts to show people that it's everyone's issue to prevent violence and to be looking out for one another. I often use the analogy that Green Dot uses because I've been trained in Green Dot, and I'm sure South Carolina knows about Green Dot. But right, no one has to do everything, but everyone has to do something. And when I work with students around this, there's been some spaces where I've done polls with over 50 students, and every single person in that room knows somebody who's experienced violence. And so we cannot look away, we cannot shy away from it. Like, we have to attack it from the bottom. And so bringing in the bystanders is an example. And we are currently, through our grant funding that we have through the state, we used to have Green Dot, but we've since moved away from that because it's such a cookie cutter program that it really doesn't fit the needs of our campus anymore. And so we've had staff leave and capacity issues a little bit on my staff, but we're developing our own bystander intervention program that is eventually going to expand, not just for interpersonal violence, but if there's hazing, how can you use bystander intervention for hazing? So we'll eventually create a curriculum around that. If there's people that are peer pressuring and trying to coerce someone to use more substances, how can you use bystander intervention to like intervene? Or if you're noticing people that are starting to show overdose signs or overconsumption of alcohol, right? Like how can you use bystander intervention to get that person, call 911 so they get the medical support that they need. But again, really trying to instill this idea that we're all trying to look after one another. And it's okay to step in because it's showing that you care and that you're not trying to be this Debbie Downer. Next slide for me, which is the last slide. But we really have a very robust prevention program in our office. We have, funny enough, VIP, similar to y'all's program. That's one of our internship programs that we offer for students, not every year, but almost every year. This year, we're doing it with our fraternity and sorority chapters. We do a lot of awareness month programming. We just rebranded our masculinities group to the Masculinities Collective, and it's all about breaking free of rigid masculinities. That's also some state grant money that we have, and I'm actually really excited about that because we're hosting our UCSB's, I don't know that I'm aware of, our inaugural masculinities conference that's focusing on men's mental health, because men are struggling a lot, and they're struggling in silence. And so we really are trying to create more spaces around that for men to live more authentically and not in such rigid ways. And so that's kind of all I have to share. I'd be happy to answer way more questions about bystander intervention. I know I just kind of like glazed over it a little bit, but I wanted to make sure we had some time for questions.
Great. Thank you all. Thank you both so much. It's always so helpful to kind of hear, different ideas that we can take and also hearing that we're on the right track in a lot of different areas. So that's always appreciated. As questions are going to be starting to come through, I did want to call on a couple people from USC to kind of share a little bit about things from our campus, if that's okay. And then maybe if some questions come up, they might be able to help answer them as well.
Great.
I'll start with Dr. Mark Shook, our Dean of Students. If you don't mind sharing a little bit about how our amnesty policy came to be here at USC.
Sure, happy to do that. Good to see everybody this afternoon. Thank you so much for your presentation. It was great. Sven, I am chairing our masculinities task force for our president, so I'm going to be in touch with you on that. And for that reason, I will forgive your remark about Tennessee. I may be the only one on the call to do so, but I appreciate it. So when I arrived 7 years ago, I was surprised that USC did not have any sort of amnesty policy. I've worked at several institutions where it functioned effectively. My background was in conduct, so saw the importance of the amnesty policy in terms of educating a community to not worry so much about punitive sanctions and the possibility of losing a life. Was able to find a willing partner in our student government president, most notably his chief of staff, who some of the folks on this call will remember with love, Davis Latham. He later became Speaker of the Senate and made quite an impression, but particularly with help from Amy Horrigan and her wonderful partners in Sape. When we were fortunate to have Sape under the Office of the Dean of Students, we were able to really socialize the policy as much as we can. Student government took all the credit for it, which we were happy because that helped with some initial PR. We were also fortunate in the fact that that year there was a law put into the South Carolina Code. So our policy actually follows very closely with that South Carolina Code. I was going to share that for everybody. Also happy to share our Good Samaritan policy. For a number of reasons, we don't refer to our policy as an amnesty policy, even though it's fairly similar along those lines. But as it's been here, the other person that's going to follow me is our excellent director of student conduct to talk about its utilization, because we do survey on it. We have students that are aware of it, but many of them don't trust it. So while we have an excellent program, excellent graphics that SAPE has derived, it still is not making a high level impact on our campus that we would like to. And I think Maureen can talk about what she actually sees in terms of its application from the conduct process. So thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, my name is Maureen Derrick. I serve as our Director of Student Conduct and Academic Integrity. And I've worked here since about 2011. When Four Loko really became a thing, I'm going to say in like 2014, 2015, we had about 160 alcohol hospitalizations that year, including 15 on our like bid day, first night out for our students. So since then, have really worked collaboratively with the folks on this call and folks in other departments to get the message out more. We're still seeing the main folks calling, utilizing our Good Samaritan policy as our housing and residence life staff, our RAs, students who live in the hall. We do get a few every year of students who see folks outside of our residence halls, but we've done a lot of work in recent years as a coalition around our tailgates and our bar culture, and being able to make a big headway in both of those in the last couple of years. Our hospitalization numbers are down, and for many reasons that folks shared on this call. I think less students are drinking post-COVID. That does look different. But in regards to our student groups utilizing our amnesty policy, that's still much lower than we would like it to be. Anything else you wanted me to add, Mark? I'll send it back to you, Jenna.
Great,
I'll
thanks.
just hop in for just
Please.
two things. One, we don't have a football team here, so tailgating is not one of our issues. We do have a beach with a street that overlooks the beach, so that's become our equivalent, I think, of a party atmosphere. One of the things I wanted to ask is perhaps what you find are the reasons that students express for not calling 911. We've tried to do our own kind of, seeking some, ideas from students. For them, it is certainly they're going to get in trouble or they're going to get their friends in trouble. It's also the cost, which we assure them, regardless of whether it's the university insurance or any other insurance, the ambulance costs are covered. And we say to them, if you make a call for 911, it doesn't necessarily mean somebody will be transported, right? So a paramedic will come, they'll evaluate it. If they don't see the need for somebody to be transported, they leave and no harm done. In fact, you've saved somebody's life. If they do end up being transported, you have saved their life, and they're not going to be mad at you, and the cost is not an issue. And we do have some funds and grants on campus that can help students cover those costs under certain circumstances. So I just wondered if you've gotten feedback, Maureen, perhaps, or Mark, on why students in your area might not be making use of the policy more, or of the yeah.
About 80% of the students who are hospitalized report that they're glad that this happened,
Right.
and that they would do it for a friend.
Right.
Unfortunately, I don't get to meet with the students who don't call, so I'm not the
Right.
best person to
Right.
answer that
Right.
part of it.
Okay.
So I'll pass that.
And that's been our experience too. The students who do go to the hospital and whose life has been
and we've
saved,
changed our
they come
process.
back and they say, I am so glad my friend called. I'm not at all mad at them. I'm so grateful.
Yeah, and we got positive feedback from parents. And this past year, we changed the letters where the conduct office still manages the process, but they all look like they're coming from the Sape office. So the students don't even ever come to the conduct process. So they never meet with anyone from conduct. They don't get anything from conduct. It's all from the Sape office. So that seems to be helping a little bit.
And one of the realities of an SEC institution, large Greek fraternity and sorority life population that don't trust the administration for anything, even though that office is remarkably resourced and we put time, effort, and energy in there. But there is just that general distrust of the administration of, oh, you're saying this, but you really want to get us in trouble. And I think that has gotten better via different administrations along those lines. I've been here 7 years and have 4 different presidents. one twice. So it's been a unique environment along those lines.
Yeah.
I
can
think
share anecdotally, I don't know how to raise my hand on Zoom, but Nikki Pruday, I'm the Assistant Director of Outreach and Communication with Sape. So I do deal with the large Greek life groups and substance use things. And it's basically just what Mark said of everybody's heard of somebody who it did not go the way that we tell them. And so there's like a lot of combat of like, well, I knew a girl who the police came and then she ended up getting arrested. And it's just like, okay, we can get in the weeds of that, but that's an extenuating circumstance. And typically also we have some students who it's like you can't do the Good Samaritan policy backwards. Like you cannot be approached by the police and then like proclaim amnesty in that moment. So sometimes it's a little bit of like, so like realistically what happened in that situation. But in talking to groups and in talking to large groups, and the Good Samaritan policy applies to large groups, we do try to reinforce that with them. But there's still always, unfortunately, that just one person who knew somebody's sister or something like that. But that has been our biggest, like, because when we first started, I was around when Mark was saying it first got like written down officially. There was like, I don't believe you. Like that was the more explicit response of, I don't think that's true. I don't know what you're talking about. More people have heard of it and believe us a little bit, or believe us more so, but I would like to think that maybe they are just being more responsible and they don't have to use it, fingers crossed, but.
Yeah.
Have y'all ever thought about, so like I've been in that SCC environment. I fully understand how that environment can be, especially with the Greek community, and how people here at UCSB don't fully understand what going to college in the South is like. They think our Greek life here is massive. Wake up news to them. But I was just wondering, like, have y'all even thought about if you're trying to get more students to trust the process and calling, utilizing student stories to be like having some, like seeing if they're okay with sharing their story, and even the friend that maybe called 911 to talk about that experience? Because I think a lot of the programming that we do in my office, like I always use storytelling because that really gets to the core of people and can help people understand better, especially men. And I don't know if that's something y'all have thought about, but that's something that came to my mind is this conversation.
Yeah, I echo that. I know our recovery program, just as an aside, uses student stories quite a bit in students sharing, what happened in their life, what did it take for them to decide that they wanted to seek possible support. And we also use peers a lot, as I'm sure you all do, to send the messaging. If it comes from us, it's received very differently, right, than if it comes from our peers. So I think every one of our peer groups, including, Sven's peers and some of the health and wellness, everybody's aware of this Just Call policy and of the Good Samaritan Responsible Action Protocol. And so the more the messaging comes from the students, the more the students trust it. And I know that you all know that's nothing new, but we try to circle back to that periodically when we're like frustrated. Why aren't they getting this? It's like, okay, let's go back to the peers and have them be the ones.
I think that's so important.
Actually, we
Really,
sorry.
sorry.
I am actively further recruiting more of our Greek life men to do this for me. Whenever I do presentations, I'm like, who wants a job? And so right now I have like 4 of them who not only want a job, but they are in Greek life and a part of that thing. And they are trying to come up with different ideas about how to present all of the things that we're saying, but in a more like accepted for version for our young men. So we're excited to see where it goes. And they're actually leaning a lot towards like mental health stuff too, which was like a happy surprise to hear from them. And it was like from them that they wanted to take that route. But yes, I would
Great.
love to not have to be the one that they see all the time.
Yeah.
We're working on it.
Yeah, terrific.
Real quickly, I did see something in the chat about how do we get a grant to increase our engagement with our male students. I think this is just the fortunate part of living in the state of California. The state assembly, state representatives voted and allocated for what's known as equity and mental health funding that was given to the UC system and the Cal State system. And the president for the UC system then disseminated those funds to each campus, allocated a percentage, et cetera. And we actually there's an executive committee formed on our campus to hold on to those funds. And we essentially applied and wrote like a mini grant almost application for it. And it's a 5-year funding cycle that the state assembly said is apparently going to be permanent funding. We're, I think, 2 years away from determining, is that going to be actually permanent funding or not? But that's how we've gotten it in the past. I will also just name drop as well, Futures Without Violence. They're based out of San Francisco, but I'm actually on their national advisory board for engaging with college-aged men. And they are going to be putting on way more engaging men's programming and training sessions and collaborations. And so if you're wanting to learn more about that, I'm way more happy to chat with you another time about that. If y'all want to bring me back another time, I'm more than happy to do that. But engaging men is like a huge passion area for me. And so obviously I'm a little biased, but so yeah, but that's how we got the funding, and we got one student to be able to do it, as well as we have about like $5,000 worth of funding each year, which is like for operational funds, that's pretty penny for engaging with men. So we can use that for food, swag, and anything. And I do see the other question about interested in hearing more about storytelling process for survivors. That storytelling, we usually resort to like Take Back the Night for that kind of stuff. When it comes to survivors sharing their story, it's, it often happens during a presentation, and it's often really allowing training my peer educators to know how to process and handle that situation as a facilitator, but just creating that space for them to share whatever they feel comfortable with, because we don't ever really stop people from sharing their stories. But it's not like we don't have intentional programming for people to share their stories. We usually resort to letting them connect with like our student group, Take Back the Night.
Great. Thank you all so much. This was such a valuable conversation. And yes, we would definitely love to hear more from you, Sven, in the future about that program. We are at the end of our time, but I just really want to thank you again so much for being here, and for all of y'all to make this conversation really seamless and easy. Y'all made my job super easy today, so I always appreciate that.
Thanks for inviting us.
And
Well, come on out and visit us, and especially during the intense winters, come out and enjoy this Santa Barbara
Bring me some
weather.
tea, please. No one knows how to get out here.
I would absolutely love that. And we do have a feedback form in the chat. Sometimes it opens when you close the Zoom, sometimes it doesn't. But if you could make sure to grab that link before we close out, that would be greatly appreciated, just so that we can make sure our future topics align with what everyone wants to hear.
Well, thank you for
So-
having us. It's really a pleasure. It gave Sven and I fun to collaborate. So really appreciate the invitation.
Yeah, thank you. Some great ideas I think that we can take back to the work that we're doing over here. So we really appreciate it.
Enjoy your break.
Thank you. Enjoy your several weeks that you have before you get one. Hang
Thank
in
you.
there.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.